Howdy folks, everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, well might as well go ahead and get started. Let's see, I guess we haven't had a meeting for a couple of weeks. We have continuing work on EAP. There's quite a bit of stuff going on with bug fixes there. I should mention that there's an active push to get EAP out, so our most likely scenario at this point is that EAP will be releasing within the next month or so. So if anybody hasn't looked at it lately, I want to take a chance to grab the latest RC and check it out. And we will continue to keep you posted on that. Velimir, Euclid, do you want to say anything about bugs that are currently being worked on? Oh, no. Alright. Maybe they don't have voice working right now. Guess I'm just seeing Ptolemy right now. Alright, well, we'll maybe check back with them in a few minutes. Let's see, what else is going on? We've been having quite a lot of discussions about... Oh, sorry, somebody say something? Alright, so we've had quite a bit of discussion around priorities recently. As a lot of you probably know, there's a big push for cloud uplift, getting all our services moved to the cloud, which is a major resource sink in itself, which does affect the amount of other viewer work we can do. And we also have quite a few things that are already in the works that we're trying to get wrapped up and shipped. The one effect of all this is that Muscadine, the Animesh customization work, is being officially put on hold. That doesn't make a lot of practical difference because I haven't been getting time to work on it anyway, but it is officially on hold rather than just I haven't had time to work on it. We will be reconsidering as the year progresses, but at least for the first quarter, it's unlikely that that's going to change. So probably won't have anything much to say about that in the near term. We are still Muscadine Silas, the Animesh customization project. Let's see, another project that we've been talking about for quite a while is Arctan. The goal there is to get something out sooner rather than later. We've talked about very kind of long-term projects to, revise land impact and potentially change incentive structures and so forth, which a lot of which involves back-end work. And the goal now is to try to, as a first step at least, do a project that's basically purely viewer side, which means the focus is going to be on updating the avatar rendering cost function in particular, since that's something purely on the viewer. So we're going to hold off on looking at things like land impact, get the arc right first. If we have good arc values, then those are likely to be used as part of the basis for computations in the future. Reconsider other. First area we're going to be focusing on is arc, which kind of to the project anyway. And the other big piece of this is we're going to be adding additional viewer UI to give people better visibility and control related to scene complexity. So this is going to be things like making it easier to see which objects and avatars are taking the most rendering resources, what options you have for improving your performance, And hopefully a lot of this information will be relevant for people who are making new content as well. But it is specifically intended to benefit kind of normal day-to-day users who are just concerned with frame rate, and even if they're not fascinated with all the details of these various complexity measures. So anyway, we will keep you posted on that. Don't have exact specs on the UI work or anything, but the intent here is to get out something in the relatively near term, as opposed to having it just kind of a long time horizon project. And let's see. So if Ptolemy or Euclid are here, does anybody want to comment on work in progress on eat bugs?
We're just plugging away at them. There's no real new update other than that.
Okay, sounds good. Last I heard, there was hope that one or two of the issues might have an impact on several different bugs. Do we know whether that's the case yet?
I haven't touched base with Euclid on that, but yeah, I think there was I think one of the driver issues looked related. I think there was like 2 or 3 related ones with the Intel, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, there's hope for that. So I'll touch base with him and get an update on that.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good. Let's see. Yeah, Beck. We'll keep you posted as much as we can. We can never have 100% certainty on timelines, but my hope at this point is to get something out, this year rather than, sometime in the indefinite future. Put it that far at least. Informing people about complexity in the viewer, I think, has some potential for motivating behavior, to the extent that if people can see, kind of which content is most complex and start actively, avoiding displaying that content, that may serve a feedback function. But I mean, even if it doesn't cause people to make their content more efficient, at least we want to give people the tools to personally have good performance. So if if that's, even if we accomplish that, then that's a real benefit, whether or not it causes all the content itself to get more efficient. But it's also kind of a necessary prerequisite, right? We can't do fancier things with changing incentives until we have complexity information that's known and that's visible to people. So this component of the project is kind of a prerequisite for doing anything more elaborate, even if it doesn't get us all the way there. So that's the other reason that we're focusing on it first. The region parcel owner complexity is something that we may consider at some point, but it's not in this initial phase. Firstly, because it requires quite a lot of back-end work that we don't really have the cycles for right now. Secondly, because it kind of depends on information that we're collecting during the kind of inherently goes a pipeline. Yeah, of course, the point is to make the numbers non-arbitrary. As we've discussed a lot of times before, we've got some serious holes in the way this stuff gets calculated. In particular, not counting geometric complexity the way that we should. But I think that's a solvable problem. I don't think it's not solvable in the sense that you can come up with one number that's perfect and that exactly reflects the complexity for user on every possible piece of hardware, but I do think we can come up with something that at least is accurate enough that it makes a useful guide for people to understand where the complexity is. I mean, it's not that mysterious that, you know, rendering lots of geometry takes a long time and rendering lots of textures takes a long. To the extent that we're not reflecting that in our cost functions, there's a serious hole in our process there that needs to be fixed. You know, I don't think this initial pass is going to, you know, instantly cause everybody to start making good LODs, although, you know, that would be great if it did. But you know, we are going to try to make sure that the cost function doesn't penalize LODs. You know, kind of the same stuff that we looked at when we were doing the impact formulas for ambush, where, you know, we say that, you know, up to a point, you know, it's fine to have some additional geometry for LODs, and we're not charge you any extra for that. Exact details are TBD. I'm not saying we're going to use the animesh formula, but you know, that's you know, obviously one that we've taken in the past to try to tackle that sort of issue. Yeah, and auto LODs is definitely something we're interested in. It's not part of the Arctan project itself, but it's something that we're going to be doing some research into. So I think that's it for official announcements. And we have some viewers coming out that they don't specifically relate to you know, content creation and stuff. You know, name changes coming soon, profiles viewers coming soon. There's a new mate viewer that's probably going to be promoting next week. You know, slightly, I guess, is that it's the first one that we've done completely based on you know, Git instead of Mercurial. So pieces of our pipeline supporting Git, so, you know, that'll become kind of the standard going forward for, you know, all of our internal repos. Let's see. So yeah, I guess that's about it for us. So anything else folks want to chat about? Let's see. Yeah, Lucy, I'm definitely not promising that anything's going to happen with Animesh in Q2. I'm just promising you that nothing's going to happen with it. Let's see. The URL for the repos. Just a second, I can pull that up for you. So most of the development work is in this repo. So most of the stuff we're working on, you're going to see a branch called dirt viewer some number corresponding to the work that's going on for that particular project. And then when a viewer gets released, you know, promoted as the default viewer, then the contents of that branch are going to, you know, be moved into the master branch. And so, you know, we do have some projects that are being managed other places, but you know, generally viewer dev have stuff going into it as goes along. There's still a few things that are kind of off in their own rooms, but we'll be probably consolidating that more over time. We also have the official release repo, which is people worrying about the 666 thing before. That wasn't intentional. We could change it to 2 Li per 1,000 triangles. You think people would like that better?
No.
Well, anyway, the work we're doing now for ARC is specifically for rendering cost calculations, not for land impact. So that's there's definitely not going to be any direct comparison there. Devil made us do it. Well, obviously, it would be better if we had resources to work on every feature, but the reality is we've got a lot of projects and not a huge number of people, so it's there's always going to be contention for what we prioritize at any given time. In the last few years, we have put a pretty large percent of our efforts into new things on the content side, and that may leave us with a little more of a deficit in some other areas right now. Joe, you're saying object LEDs get used, but avatars don't. Do you mean because of the 2x factor that's in there? Highest LED applies to everything. Yeah, that's a mixed bag. Obviously, that can have bad effects in terms of making things slower. On the other hand, I think if we sort of freely mixed and matched LODs for different objects, there would be places where that would generate quite a lot of concern. You've got a kind of a coarse polygonal or just plain disappearing something attached to something that's still showing up, you know, like, hey, why did my dress just disappear? You know, let's generate some commentary and both. Yeah, I mean, for big things like, you know, mesh clothing, and for the avatar itself with like the head versus the body, it really seems like you want all that stuff to be at the same level of detail. I mean, the place where it gets kind of ridiculous is if you've got, you know, an earring or something that's, you know, relatively microscopic, and you're still trying to render it at, you know, all its, you know, multifaceted glory. That that can be kind of goofy, and maybe maybe we need to do something a little bit smarter rather than just saying, you know, you factor in the relative bounding boxes, that kind of thing. I guess this is a good time to toss out my question about, you know, what tools we should be looking at for LOD generation. You know, GLOD is obviously something we've had for a long time. I've heard people say good things about Mesh Optimizer. Anything else out there that we should be looking into? Tell me, when you say new versus old, do you mean mesh versus the kind of old decal system, or
Yeah, that
just, yeah?
that included. Yeah, I'm not sure what exactly people are using. So kind of nice some feedback. It's like, what are people just seeing out in the wild, so to speak. And I imagine there's probably two groups of people. People who are always updating to the latest and greatest thing, and then I imagine there's probably a certain percentage of populations like they don't care. They're just using whatever they got, and they're so question, but it's more data on that definitely should it.
Yeah, I think there's a, you know, pretty large chunk of the population that does have a you know, mesh-based avatar and mesh-based clothing, but we don't really have the stats to do an exact breakdown on it. been wearing the same fish-shaped thing for the last 5 years. I've been wearing the same fish-shaped thing for the last 11 years. I think you probably have a strong case, however.
Actually, somewhat a related topic. Just kind of quick on formal poll. Kind of curious, how many people are actually using Substance Painter? And the next thing I was kind of curious about was how many people are actually using Armory Paint. And the third question is how many people would actually or are using Armor Paint. Armor Paint's the open source version of Armory Paint, so that's sort of what the context is for that.
I'm not sure what happened with Ptolemy's head. You right-clicking on something?
No, that's weird. Huh. Yeah, I've seen that before, actually. It kind of glitches out a little bit. It's weird.
Looks okay now.
Yeah, I think I've seen this bug before when you actually click on an object. I think I've seen that stuttering back and forth there. Add it to the bug queue.
So is it fair to say that the content creator community is mostly using Substance Painter and Blender? Is there anything else that should be in that list too? So streamlining, polysale streamlining which process? I mean, if people are using different combinations of tools, you know, plus our stuff, of course, then, you know, kind of what's the best way to improve the flow there? Yeah, nice, Joe. So I saw a couple of people saying that FBX support would be useful. Are there other big contenders we should be thinking about for mesh formats? Pivots, yeah, I think pivots have been waiting on simulator work for ages now. FBX is closed source. Does that mean Blender can't produce it, or just that you can't import it without licensing something? I thought our current uploader did recognize, uh, submeshes versus instances of submeshes and allow you to just upload it once, but haven't looked at it in a long time. Advanced mode for the mesh upload. Alright, a lot of good discussion here, and I don't want to discourage continuing, but I should just put in a plug that we're getting fairly far along in the meeting. If anybody's been waiting to ask about anything else, please feel free to jump in. Is there anything in the content space that cloud migration affects? It shouldn't. I mean, basically the goal is to, uplift all the services without changing their behavior. Sorry, Kyra, can you expand on mesh UUIDs? What are you asking for them for? I mean, meshes have IDs, but I assume that's not what you mean. UUID flipping. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a problem. Obviously, we've got a lot of alpha flipping going on now. I think UUID flipping would actually give worse performance because it would have to keep completely rebuilding everything from scratch whenever the UUID changed. So it wouldn't make sense to pursue it unless we were also trying to kind of change things under the hood so that it worked more efficiently. Silas, you said you're seeing changes with the way things load. What kinds of changes? Oh, I haven't seen the 100-meter thing. That sounds not ideal. I have seen content like that. I think there was a kind of a simple skeleton type thing that was one of the early mesh pieces of test content, and you know, it was like 10 times or 100 times too tall because it was in the wrong units. If you resed it as a static object, but then it would you know, look right if you displayed it rigged. Hard to say, Lucy. I'm not saying that there's guaranteed to be zero script work, but you know, it's a safe bet there's not going to be a ton. You know, just given the way that we've got people allocated currently. Of course, getting good suggestions into the pipeline is useful, even if they don't get acted on immediately. But I realize that's not as much fun as you know, getting something quickly. We're just going to say everything is coming in Q3, but we're not going to specify the year. Yeah, well, Joe, I understand your frustration. I mean, honestly, even if you've got a JIRA that's being actively worked on, it can take more than a year to get it in the release pipeline. But you know, we do appreciate all the input, and it does affect what we do. All right, well, we should probably wrap up for today. I'm going to have to run off to another meeting. So I think we should be on for next week, and can continue everything then. All right, well, thanks for coming, everybody.
Thanks for everyone's feedback. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Vir. Thanks, Linden. Thanks, everyone.